Hello and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. And on today's episode, we're talking about Allan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold, which is a sequel to a movie we did not a few episodes ago, maybe about like 20 episodes ago, King Solomon's Mines. It's the return of Sharon Stone and Richard Chamberlain. I know you were a big fan of the original. I was too. So
Yeah. So I was actually really looking forward to watching this one.
Yeah, me too. It's one that I wanted to see. This is the one that I've heard of more than King Solomon's Mines personally. This is the one, like, whenever I heard like my father or my grandfather bring it up, this is the one that always got referenced by them.
Really?
Yeah, which is surprising. In my opinion, especially because this one was a major flop. But speaking of something that's not a flop, I want to bring something up. Patreon. Yeah, we have a Patreon. Yeah, patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturpodcast. We are posting exclusive episodes on there if you want to check that out. Just kind of side things, conversations, fun games we're playing, and also that $5 to donate to us will help us out a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate any and all donations.
Yeah, of course. But back to the movie. What did you think of the movie?
So like I said, I really liked the first one a lot. I was so surprised, and my thoughts then were it was a complete parody of Indiana Jones, because that movie is really nonstop. I mean, like I said, they get John Rhys Davies to play basically an evil version of his character, so it felt like a real big parody to me. But when I watched this one, because that was like kind of like the knock of the first one, because you started the episode by saying this is a ripoff of Indiana Jones, and watching the second one, I now agree with that statement, because this is like straight up ripping off Temple of Doom.
Yeah, no, it is. It is a straight ripoff. That's exactly how I felt, because you convinced me after that one, and you were like, it's more of a parody, it's a comedy, and even I was sucked in by the charm of it. It was a really like charming style to it. It's actually genuinely funny. This one is, I mean, it's exactly
it's so boring,
and it's so boring. I was so saddened. This was probably one of the biggest disappointments on the show so far.
The biggest disappointment for me. I mean, because you're hoping that it's going to be like this hidden gem. And I mean, there are 2 different directors, so I don't know if that had to do with anything or what, but it was just such a huge drop in quality. Like I said, that was probably, I want to say maybe like in my top 10, maybe even of the episodes that we've covered, maybe, but for the first one and this one, I'm like, I was struggling to finish this movie, honestly.
Yeah. No, I that's funny that you say that. I paused this movie like, I want to say 3 or 4 times while watching it. Like, it didn't have me grabbed. I was like, okay, I got something else to do. I'm going to pause it, step away, especially in the end. So at first, I think this movie, it has some of that charm still, right? Sharon Stone, Richard Chamberlain, they kind of do like a funny bit where they're going to America and she buys him a suit and he doesn't want to wear it. It's silly, right? And then it somehow just loses all steam. It loses any steam that it has and is just dead boring.
It is. I mean, there's some little funny stuff in the beginning. Like, there's one which I did laugh at. And that's why I was getting kind of excited at first, because very early in the movie, he's running through the town and there's a merchant that's trying to get him to buy this pot. And he's like, please buy the pot. And he's like, no, I don't have time for that. And then the merchant just stabs himself in the stomach. And he's really trying to show him that he bought this new body armor, but he thinks he just stabbed himself earlier. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll buy the pot. Jeez.
Yeah, no, I thought that was funny too. And little do we know that item isn't just a big gag. That becomes like the most important item in all of the movie. It's some really weird writing, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because
that's why everyone thinks he's a god.
Well, yeah, and he buys more than one, because I mean, first it just looks like spandex or something. Like it just looks
Yeah.
like you just like a leotard that you wear, and it's on the top half of your body, and it's like this impenetrable armor that can stop blades from
Mm-hmm.
hitting you. And he wears it. He gets protected by blades, and that's just he's got magical plot armor now. He can just any weapons. He's totally fine. Nothing will affect him.
Exactly, and that's funny that you say that because the plot armor is literally a huge part of the plot. It's silly, and it's so weird too. There's a lot here that I just don't think works again because I mean Richard Chamberlain, he's always charming. He has a charm to him, and I think he tries his best here, but he just doesn't have the funny dialogue either. Sharon Stone, who I kind of like, I thought she was fine in the last one. I just don't think she works as well in this one either. It's just not there.
No, it just like I said, I think they were trying to play this one straight completely,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't work. They were trying to make it a straight up adventure movie. Richard Chamberlain, like I said, was probably my favorite part of the other movie because he was so charming. He had all this really witty dialogue. He barely talks in this movie. Like there's a lot of scenes where he's just not even talking, or he's just kind of reacting in a very stoic kind of manner. And I'm like, this is not even the same character almost.
Yeah, it's really sad, honestly.
And probably the biggest crime of this movie, James Earl Jones is in the entire movie. He's like a supporting character. He doesn't do anything. Nothing.
He's so boring. This character sucks. What does he have, like an axe for some of the movie? He chops like a sacrificing table, says some lines. He's not even funny lines. He's like never really funny.
That's his whole personality, is that he's a big guy that carries an axe.
Yeah, it's definitely phoned in too. Like because I read he said later on in his life that he did this movie just to get a trip to Africa. And it shows. It shows like I'm here for a paycheck and a vacation. Yeah.
Yeah. But they didn't even give him anything interesting to say. It's just like,
No.
oh, well, let's just put James Earl Jones in here. And even in the first one, there was Umbopo.
Yeah, I liked Umbopo.
He was a fun little character. He always tagged along, and he had little funny bits in there. But I was thinking maybe, oh, this is kind of what it's going to be. But instead, the new comic relief character is this guy named Shawarma, and it's a white actor in brown face.
Yep, and it's rough.
Yeah, so he's just doing a really bad Indian accent the whole time, and he's just a scared man, and just he loves gold. That's his personality.
Yeah, it's a very one-note character. I hate that I'm being so negative so far, but I really do feel so negative on this movie. That character is also just awful to watch, in my opinion.
It's not because I mean there was, like I said, there was that one scene, but I'm really having a tough time even thinking of positive things other than that, like one or two comedic moments.
Exactly. That's all of it. Because so the whole plot is this ragtag team get together and they try to find the lost city, and they get there about I want to say 45, 50 minutes in. And then the end of the movie, I honestly, I went to Tubi again after watching it to click through the end because I was like, what happened? I seriously was like, I feel like I didn't see anything happen here.
I felt the same way.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad to hear that.
Because so it wasn't, it's not even like it was even exciting even leading up to that city.
No.
But I mean, it was mildly interesting, I will say, before they got to the city, because they do little funny things where they're hanging from a cliff and Allan Quatermain has to shoot this gold panel at a really awkward angle. So there's little stuff like that. It's like, okay, this is kind of interesting. But you said that's only about 40 minutes, a little less than half of the movie. And then the rest of the movie, they're in the city, and then the movie just stops. It's them explaining this world because Allan Quatermain's looking for his lost brother.
Yeah. And
his brother in this movie is actually played by his lover at the time, Richard Chamberlain's lover at the time.
That must be weird.
Well, to me, it's like nepotism, sort of like, oh, I had to get my my partner this role because I give him something to do.
Exactly. Yeah, we can get double the paycheck.
But whatever. It's not. He wasn't bad or anything like that. But
No.
it was just boring. So
Yeah, just kind of forgettable. Like it's really weird too because I feel like it shouldn't be. Henry Silva plays the Emperor, and it feels like he's giving a fun performance, but he's kind of not. It's forgettable. Elvira shows up and doesn't even talk for any of them.
well, yeah. There's Henry Silva. He looks cool. He looks like Gene Simmons kind of,
Yeah.
but without the face paint. But he doesn't do anything. Again, it's not like, well, like if you going back to Indiana Jones, I could think of tons of things like each bad guy did in each movie, and I can at least think of one memorable thing that each of them did. I can't think of one memorable thing he did, and then he had these two, attractive women that were kind of hanging off of him, and there was like this weird side story with them too, where like one was evil and one was good or something, but I honestly, I'm blanking out on it just because it was so forgettable, and it just wasn't good. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I mean, but because I did take some notes about like other like weird things, like when they show up in the city, one of the first things they see when they show up in this lost city of gold, one of the first things they say is, "Oh, a white race does exist."
It's so weird, like the white race talk. The black people that are a part of this, they wear white hoods.
Well, yeah, no, it's funny because they're excited to see white people, even though this movie is set in Africa, and they're like, "Oh boy, white people here in Africa," and there are black people in this city, but it's like any other movie where it's just like these token black characters that are just...
It's so weird, right?
In Africa.
A movie set in Africa, there's token black characters. It's silly. So what do they run? Is it a school or something? Because like Sharon Stone and Richard Chamberlain just live with like a bunch of kids, and I don't really understand what the deal is there.
Oh, at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, at the beginning of the movie, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they're teachers, or
I don't know.
They have a bunch of kids that are like living in their backyard, and the movie started. The first scene with Richard Chamberlain is that. So one other funny thing I remember was they're putting fruit onto this catapult launcher. And then the kids would launch the fruit into the air, and then Richard Chamberlain would shoot it in midair.
Yeah.
And the first thing he shoots is plantains, and he said, "Okay, now try some tomatoes." And then they put the tomatoes on, they launch him up, and he shoots the tomatoes. And then again he says, "Oh, now try that. Now let's try some tomatoes." And he does it again. He shoots tomatoes twice in a row, but he acts like he hasn't before.
Yeah, it's really, so that confused me. I had to like double take that scene. And this is the first time you see him in the movie, if I'm correct, right? This is his introduction.
Yeah,
and fruits and veggies.
Right, and the first scene in the other movie, he's going to the town and he's like punching and shooting people. It's really exciting. And this one, it's like, okay.
Exactly. Yeah. There is one funny gag because Sharon Stone's trying to get him to wear a suit, and then she's like, "Oh, we'll just show the kids; they'll let you know the real reaction." And he walks up to him, and then they run away screaming. And of course, he's like, "Oh, this is garbage or something," or like, "I'm taking it off." And then a half shot guy shows up behind him in the frame. Just a funny little sight gag.
That I laughed at that because it was just like. They didn't see this guy that's supposedly struggling. Yeah. And he literally falls into frame. And they're like, "Oh, hey."
Exactly. And then Richard Chamberlain goes on the hunt, and I really don't remember quite what happens in that scene.
Well, so when he figures out that, because the dying guy tells him that his brother found the lost city of gold and he has to find him, and then Richard Chamberlain. The movie picks up Richard Chamberlain and Sharon Stone are planning out their wedding, and
Mm-hmm.
she's really excited to go back to America, and he really doesn't want to go to America. And she even says, like, I'm not going to spend my honeymoon out here. And I'm like, you live out here. What?
I thought the same thing. It's so weird. And like it's such a weird like just the way it's written because her plot she's like leaving, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go to America without you. And then like 5 minutes later she's like, I'm gonna stay and help him. And
Well, yeah,
so sudden.
yeah, because she even made a big speech, like, because, well, he says, like, your brother's in trouble, you got to go help him. And Richard Chamberlain's like, I can't go to America. I have to help my brother. And even she's like, what about our wedding? And
Yeah.
he's like, why are you making me choose? She's like, that's not fair. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not making you choose. I'm like, yes, you are making him choose. You're making a big deal over a stupid wedding over his brother that's in danger. But,
Yeah, his brother and like best friend, right? Like it's like
right.
yeah. It's I don't know, it's weird. But she changes her mind and then she shows up to town and there's a really
Like after 10 minutes, she changes her mind.
yeah, after 10 minutes. And then the scene where she shows back up, of course, she like lands in town and every man there wants to like take advantage of her. And I was like, what? Why? Why do we need this? But it was the 80s. So I don't know. That's what I'm realizing doing this show. Is just that's a plot device.
That's just how the 80s were back then.
Wow, it must have sucked. Sharon Stone does a little bit more screaming and everything in this one. She was nominated for a Razzie for this one. Still don't know if it's Razzie worthy, but it's not great.
It's not overly terrible, but it's not very good either.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not the best in this movie, but I don't really blame her. There's nobody really shines in this one, so
Yeah, true. It seems definitely like just well, it's weird that it's like this because it was supposedly shot back to back, but I really think it was just a director. Maybe it was the director really just changed everything.
if they were shooting it back to back, I wonder why they got different directors, though.
Yeah, that's what's weird. That's what's weird. But everything I see is like talks about it being back to back.
Like imagine if they filmed Lord of the Rings, but someone other than Peter Jackson directed Two Towers.
Yeah, just like right in the middle. Yeah, they even reuse like some of the music from the first one, just like the main theme. It just plays constantly through this movie. It's weird. I feel like they kind of just I don't know. They didn't care as much. There wasn't as much love put into this one.
I feel like the budget was cut very drastically for this movie because that was the thing too. I read where they just reused the same score from the first movie, and there's only about, I think, like 30 minutes maybe of original music that was produced, and most of it's just the same. They're like, oh well, we could just reuse it. Why wouldn't we just reuse it again? And the effects in this one are really bad.
Yeah, really bad.
There's these giant snake-looking creatures, and it just looks like these rubber snakes that they just throw at the cast.
Yeah, it's bad.
There's another scene where there's two characters like hanging above a pit, and one of them is leaning across the pit, like trying not to fall in, and then there's another character sat on top of them, and then eventually they do fall, and when they fall, for a split second, you could see the wires when they fall.
You can see it, yeah.
They didn't hide it at all.
Yeah, there's a scene where they're like in canoes in a cave, and it's all blue screen, and it just doesn't match the actions. Like there's like a scene where two people dodge a rock that's coming at them, but they dodge it after it passes them. It just looks rough. It's like they wanted to do it as big as Raiders of the Lost Ark, but obviously they just didn't have enough money to do that.
Yeah, but like I said, I think Temple of Doom was the main source.
Temple of Doom, yeah.
Because they even have the scene because there's a scene in Temple of Doom where it has the underground like working scene with all like the little child laborers from Temple of Doom, and this one has a similar scene to that. It's not little kids like doing manual labor, but it's still like a scene where it looks exactly like the same scene. It just doesn't look as good.
No, yeah, that's just this movie, right? It's just not as good in every way. Not as good as Indiana Jones, not as good as the first movie, not as good as other canon movies. I mean, this is one of the reasons that in '87, this would be the decline of canon, because this was it cost 13 million and made 3.8 million. That is
Yeah.
nothing.
I would much rather watch Over the Top than this one again.
Oh yeah, Over the Top's actually fun. Can't say I was ever bored in Over the Top. And I think we've talked about this and said this before. One of the worst crimes you can have is just making a boring movie. And this is it.
Especially a movie that's supposed to be a fun time. It's not like this is supposed to be a serious drama or anything. It's supposed to be an adventure movie where you feel like you're taking part in an adventure. This one I don't ever get that impression at all.
Totally agree.
And the movie ends, they throw a guy into a swimming pool looking thing, and that's it. They do that.
Yeah, it just kind of, it ends. God, and I was ready for this thing to end too.
This movie is just under 2 hours, like an hour and 40 minutes, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
It felt like 3 hours.
It did. It was a drag. As soon, like you said, like it was at least a little interesting before, but once they get to that city and they do nothing there but like Allan Quatermain just doing gags where he can't die or get hurt, it's just like, come on, get this thing over. I do not recommend watching this movie.
No, watch the first one and call it a day.
Yeah, even morbid curiosity, there's really no reason to watch this one. And
I don't know if you rewatched the Canon documentary, but there is a story about this movie too that was in the Canon documentary.
Okay.
So when Gary Nelson, who actually, now that I say his name, he actually passed away as of recording this about 2 weeks ago. So
wow.
It is kind of weird that this is really timely. But,
Yeah.
But anyway, he was interviewed in the Canon documentary, and he was saying that he was showing the dailies of this movie to Menachem Golan.
Mm-hmm.
And Menachem was like really mad during it, saying like what the hell? Like, why do they look like this? Like, these are supposed to be aliens. They look like beautiful people. What the hell? And Gary Nelson was really confused, but apparently, because, Canon would just make a ton of movies every year. That was like their MO. And apparently he thought he was actually watching the movie Invaders from Mars that was directed by Tobe Hooper. So when he was on there, I guess Menachem thought, he was like, why are all these like beautiful people? Why are they not aliens or whatever? And Gary Nelson was like, this is not Invaders from Mars. This is Allan Quatermain. And Menachem was still trying to play it off like, oh, but this is still unreleasable footage. And Gary Nelson said, have you seen like the other movies that you've released?
yeah. Like there's some garbage there. I mean, that sounds like him. Just definitely like, I'm not in the wrong. This is
just digging your heels in. I'm right no matter what.
Yeah, which is just silly. Which is funny because I was reading that he was working on trying to get a third one of these movies made before he died.
And I'm almost kind of glad there wasn't. Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it could have been better.
It could have been interesting, right? I feel like, I mean, it probably was going to be bad. It probably is going to be an awful movie, but it could have been fun. I feel like it could have at least been a fun watch.
I did. Yeah, Richard Chamberlain said it would have been on board, is what I think I remember reading. So
that would have been really cool.
Hey, if Harrison Ford could still get a paycheck in his 80s playing Indiana Jones, why not?
Yeah, exactly. You can hire all these old people to do these roles. I don't mind.
People just play the same roles for the rest of their life. Why would they ever do any other roles? Who cares?
Yeah, that's all Harrison Ford ever did, right? Indiana Jones. No, nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that about wraps up for Allan Quatermain. An unfortunate end to the franchise.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's okay. We'll see what's coming up next on Thursday.
Nathan, what we're going to be talking about next time is going to be another sequel to a movie that we reviewed, and it is the sequel to the movie Willard, and that is 1972's Ben. And that will be on YouTube for free. It's totally on YouTube. You can watch it right now.
As a reminder, we do have a Patreon if you'd love to support us over there. We are also on Twitter at DIDFpod, and also email us at driveindoublefeaturpodcast@gmail.com. Send us any memories you have with these movies, any recommendations. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time.
Until next time.